Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Bushra Aslam from the Department of Physiology. Today we will discuss about the some reflexes and about the structure of the retina and its applications and cells present in the retina. First of all, pupillary light reflex. There are two types of reflexes that we see when the light is fall on the pupilla. When we fall the light on the pupil, one is the direct light pupillary response, and other comes is the consensual response that we see in the other eye. What is direct pupillary response? If light is shown directly in one on eye, its pupil constricts. This response is known as the direct pupillary response. And if the pupil of the other eye also constricts, this is known as the consensual response. This figure shows the dilation and the constriction of the pupil as shown in the figure. Pupil constricts. Why it constricts? Because the circular muscles of the iris contracts. This is under the control of the parasympathetic nervous system. So when we have the parasympathetic stimulation, the pupil constricts. This occurs in the presence of bright light. Second response is the dilation of the pupil. Pupil dilates as the radial muscles of the iris contracts. This occurs in the presence of sympathetic nervous response and also in the dim light. So we have pupillary light reflexes. One is the direct and second is the indirect light response. Consensual light reflex. Its pathway is very important. What is it? If we fall the light on the left eye, how it passes through the optic nerve, then to optic chiasma, then optic tract, pretractal nucleus and Edinger Westphal nucleus of both sides, then to the ciliary ganglion of then left short ciliary nerves and right short ciliary nerves. Then constriction of the pupil, left eye. As we shown the light on the left eye, so it is the direct response, and opposite pupil of the opposite eye also constrict. This is the consensual light reflex. Why it occurs? It as you have seen that the fibers goes to the Edinger Westphal nucleus of both sides. How the control of pupillary diameter takes place? It is under the control of parasympathetic nerves and sympathetic nerves. It is known as the miosis and mydriasis. Miosis, decreasing of the pupillary aperture due to stimulation of parasympathetic nerves, as I have already told you, that excites the pupillary sphincter muscles. Then mydriasis, dilation of the pupillary aperture due to the stimulation of sympathetic nerves that excite the radial fibers of the iris. Next, Ergal-Robertson pupil. When the pupil fails to respond to light, but it does respond to accommodation and it is small in size, it is an important diagnostic sign of CNS disease, that is syphilis. Horner syndrome. The sympathetic nerves to the eye are occasionally interrupted. Interruption where occurs in the cervical sympathetic chain. Here this picture shows the features of the Horner syndrome. What are that? One is the pupil remain persistently constricted to smaller diameter than the pupil of the opposite eye, as shown in the figure, as shown in the picture, and that is known as the miosis. Drooping of the upper eyelid, ptosis. This is known as the ptosis. Blood vessels on the corresponding side of the face and head becomes persistently dilated, that is flushing of the face. Sweating cannot occur on the affected side of the face, that is known as the anhidrosis. So what are the features of the Horner syndrome? Miosis, ptosis, flushing of the face and anhidrosis. Next, very important topic, retina. First of all, we will discuss the layers of the retina. They are very important. This picture shows all the 10 layers. What are they? One is the pigment. First of all, there is the pigment epithelial, then photoreceptor layers including rods and cones, external limiting membrane, outer nuclear layer, outer plexiform layer, inner nuclear layer, inner plexiform, ganglion cell layers, and the optic nerve layer, and the last one is the internal limiting membrane. After the light passes through the lens system of the eye and then through the vitreous humor, it enters the retina from the inside. That is, it passes first through the ganglionic cell layer, then through the plexiform and nuclear layer before it finally reaches the layer of rods and the cones, that is the photoreceptor layer, located all the way on the outer edge of the retina. This distance is the thickness of several hundred micrometers. Visual acuity is decreased by this passage through such non-homogeneous structures or tissues. However, in the central foveal region of the retina, these all layers are pulled inside to decrease this loss of visual acuity. Next is the fovea centralis. Fovea lies centrally below and to one side of the optic disc. It is found in the center of the shallow depression or pit known as the macula lutea. The fovea is a minute area in the center of the retina, occupying a total area little more than 1 square millimeters. What is its function? It is especially capable of acute and detailed vision. Fovea centralis. It is only 0.3 millimeters in diameter and is composed of entirely of cones. There is difference in the structure of the cones that are present in the fovea centralis and the cones that are present in the peripheral retina. Actually, the cones that are present in the peripheral retina has flat bodies and the foveal cones have long and slender bodies. Other structures in addition to the cones are blood vessels, ganglionic cells, and inner nuclear layer of the cells, all arranged in a manner that light passes unimpeded to reach the cones. Only cones are present at the fovea which have individual connection with the bipolar and ganglionic cells. That point is very important, that contain a single connections with the bipolar and ganglionic cells. Hence the fovea gives us most the sensitive and acute vision. Peripheral retina. There are only hardly any cone in the peripheral retina but many rods. The rods here are short and wider than in the central retina. Receptive fields at the periphery are very large with many rods converging onto one ganglion cells. As I have told you previously that in the fovea region you got only the single connections, but then in the case of peripheral retina there are many cones, rods converging on one ganglionic cell. So we have the large receptive field at the periphery. The rods are 2 to 5 micrometer in diameter in peripheral retina, whereas cones are 5 to 8 micrometers in diameters. In the central part of retina or in the fovea there are no rods and the cones are slender and have diameter of only 1.5 micrometers. Next we will discuss the cells, all the nuclear cells that are present in the retina. First of all, we will discuss about the rods and cones, what are their functions. We will also study its applications in detail. In short, they transmit signals to the outer plexiform layer where they synapse with the bipolar. These are the rods, cones and rods. They synapse with the bipolar cells and the horizontal cells. Horizontal cells. As shown in the diagram, horizontal cells which transmit signals horizontally in the outer plexiform layer from the rods and cones to the bipolar cells. What are the function of the horizontal cells? It actually provides the lateral inhibition to enhance visual contrast. As shown in the diagram, you can see in the diagram that horizontal cell how it works is it connects laterally between the, it has the lateral connections between the synaptic bodies of rods and cones, as well as connecting with the dendrites of the bipolar cells as shown in the diagram. It has the lateral connections with the output of the horizontal cells are always inhibitory. Therefore, this lateral connection actually provides the lateral inhibition that is shown in this figure. What is its function? It helps to ensure the transmission of visual patterns with proper visual contrast. As shown in the diagram, it is demonstrated in this diagram that minute spot of light focused on the retina, The visual pathway from the central most area where the light strikes is excited, whereas the area to the sides are inhibited. Excitatory signals spreading widely in the retina because of spreading dendrites and axonal air in the plexiform layer. Transmission through the horizontal cells put a stop to this by providing lateral inhibition in the surrounding area. So this allows high visual accuracy in transmitting contrast borders in the visual image. Actually, these horizontal cells do not allow the light to spread in whole retina, so we can see the things with high visual accuracy. In addition to the horizontal cells, some amacrine cells provide additional lateral inhibition, and it further enhances the visual contrast in the inner plexiform layer of the retina. Next, bipolar cells. Bipolar cells transmit signals vertically from the rods and cones and horizontally to the inner plexiform layer, where they synapse with the ganglionic cells and the amacrine cells. Bipolar cells works in either by depolarizing themselves or by hyperpolarizing. So they are either excitatory or inhibitory, depending upon whether they depolarize or hyperpolarize. So we have the two types of bipolar cells providing opposing excitatory and inhibitory signals in the visual pathway: the depolarizing bipolar cells and hyperpolarizing bipolar cells. How they work? There are two possible explanations for this difference. One is that they respond by depolarizing in response to glutamate neurotransmitter released by the rods and cones, and other respond by hyperpolarizing. The other possibility is that one of the bipolar cells receives direct excitation from the rods and cones, whereas the other receives its signals indirectly through the horizontal cells. Next, amacrine cells. As shown in the diagram, here is shown the amacrine cells, which either receives directly from the bipolar cells or horizontally within the inner plexiform layer from the axons of the bipolar cells to the dendrites of the ganglionic cells to other amacrine cells. What are the functions of the amacrine cells? Actually, there are 30 different types. Some are involved in the direct pathway, as I have already told you, from rods and cones to bipolar cells to amacrine cells to ganglionic cells. This is the direct pathway. Some amacrine cells respond strongly to the onset of visual signal and some to the extinguishment of the signal. Some respond to movement of light signals across the retina. These are where the amacrine cells are type of interneurons that aid in the beginning of actually visual signal analysis. Ganglion cells, which transmits output signals from the retina through the optic nerve into the brain. There are mainly three types of ganglionic cells: W cells, X and Y cells. W cells, these are 40% receives most of their excitation from the rod cells. They have the large receptive field in the peripheral retina, and they are sensitive to directional movement in the visual field. They are important for much of our crude rod vision under dark conditions. X cells, these are present. They have the small receptive field and 55% because their dendrites do not spread widely in the retina. That's why they have the small receptive field. Discrete retinal locations may be responsible for the transmission of fine detail of visual image. It always receives input from at least one cone, probably responsible for the color vision. Next, Y cells. They are present only in 5% and largest of all, and transmit signals to the brain at 50 meters per second. They have broad dendritic field. They respond to rapid change in the visual image and appear seen as instantly when a new visual event occurs, but do not specify with great accuracy as it has the broad dendritic field and the location of the event. Next, how the excitation of the ganglionic cells take place. Ganglionic cells transmit their signals by the means of repetitive action potential. We will discuss other than the ganglionic cells, other cells do their work by the electronic conductions. Even when the ganglionic cells are unstimulated, they still transmit continuous impulses at a rate of between 5 to 40 per second. This picture shows the working of the ganglionic cells. The upper figure shows the response when the light is turned on. Rapid impulses for a fraction of second when the light first rapid impulses for a fraction of seconds when the light is first turned on, but it decreases rapidly when there is it decreases in the next few fractions of the second. The lower tracing is from the ganglionic cells that is present lateral to these cells. These are present where the light is shown when the light is turned on. Because of the lateral inhibition, there will be no signals. So when the light is turned off, opposite effects occurs. So these records are called as the on-off response to the light. The opposing directions of these responses to the light are caused by the depolarizing and hyperpolarizing bipolar cells, and transient nature of the responses is probably greatly generated by the amacrine cells, which have similar transient responses themselves. This circuit shows the three photoreceptors on the top of the illustrations. There are three photoreceptors. The central receptor excites the depolarizing bipolar cells. The two on the sides are connected to the same bipolar cells through the inhibitory horizontal cells that neutralizes the direct excitatory signals if all the three receptors are stimulated simultaneously by the light. What is the automatic regulation of the retinal sensitivity? We explain it by the light adaptation and the dark adaptation. What is light adaptation? If person has been in bright light for hours, large portion of the photochemicals in both the rods and the cones will have been reduced to retinal and opsins. Much of the retinal of both the rods and the cones will have been converted into vitamin A. So you have to remember what will happen. It will change into the retinal and opsins, and it is converted into the vitamin A. Because of these two effects, the concentration of the photosensitive chemicals remaining in the rods and cones are considerably reduced, and the sensitivity of the eye to the light is reduced. This whole process is known as the light adaptation. What is dark adaptation? If person remains in the darkness for the long time, the retinal and opsins in the rods and cones are converted back into light sensitive pigment, and the vitamin A is converted back into retinal to increase the light sensitive pigments, the final limit being determined by the amount of opsins in the rods and the cones to combine with the retinal. This is known as the dark adaptation. Very important topic. You must remember the three things as I have already told you: retinal, opsins, and the amount of vitamin A. One is the light adaptation, another one is the dark adaptation. In addition to these photochemical pigments, I also shows the two other mechanisms for light and dark adaptation. One is the pupillary change in the pupillary size, and second one is the neural adaptation. How the pupillary size changes? It causes a adaptation of approximately 30-fold within the fraction of second because of the change in the amount of light allowed through the pupillary opening as it dilates in the presence of the darkness and constricts in light. Neural adaptation, it involves the neurons in the successive stages of the visual chain in the retina itself and in the brain. So when light intensity first increases, the signal transmitted by the bipolar cells, horizontal cells, amacrine cells and the ganglionic cells are all great and intense. However, most of these signals decreases rapidly at different stages of transmission in the neural circuits. Degree of adaptation is only few-fold rather than many thousand-fold that occurs during adaptation of the photochemical system. Neural adaptation occurs in a fraction of seconds in contrast to many minutes to hours required for the full adaptation by the photochemicals. This figure shows the adaptation of the rods and the cones. As you have seen in the diagram that the sensitivity of the retina is very low upon first entering in the darkness. However, in 1 minute it increases up to the 10-fold. At the end of 20 minutes the sensitivity increases up to the 6,000 folds, and at the end of 40 minutes it increases up to 25,000 fold. This resulting curve is known as the dark adaptation curve. They are the neurotransmitters by which the retinal neurons work. Both the rods and the cones release glutamate at their synapses with the bipolar cells. Amacrine cells secrete at least 8 different types of transmitter substances including gamma aminobutyric acid, glycine, dopamine, acetylcholine and endolamine, all of which normally function as inhibitory neurotransmitters. The transmitters of the bipolar, horizontal and inner plexiform cells are unclear, but at least some of the horizontal cells also release inhibitory neurotransmissions. These are the neurotransmitters that I have discussed. How the most signals passes in the retinal neurons. They passes by the electronic conduction, but in the ganglionic cells action potential takes place. What is the electronic conduction? It means direct flow of electric current in the neural cytoplasm in nerve axons from the point of excitation all the way to the output signals, synapses. In the rods and cones, conduction from the outer segment where the varied signals are actually generated to the synaptic bodies by the electronic conduction. That is, when hyperpolarization occurs in response to light in the outer segment of the rod or cone, almost the same degree of hyperpolarization is conducted by the direct electric flow in the cytoplasm all the way to the end, to the synaptic body, and so the no action potential is required. So it is the hyperpolarization of the segment of the rod, it is not the depolarization. Thus, when the transmitter from a rod or cone stimulates a bipolar cells or horizontal cells, once again the signal is transmitted from the input to output by direct electric current flow, not by the action potentials. What is its importance? It allows the graded conduction of the signal strength. Thus, for the rods and cones, the strength of the hyperpolarizing output signal is directly related to the intensity of the illumination. The signal is not all and none as occurs in the case of the action potential. Thank you very much. This was all about my 6th lecture.